Hello, it's Darren Storsley with BareTalkTV, and of course we're here with Andrea Reimer, Vancouver City Councillor since 2008. Andrea, what I have here is your public would like to know some things about how the city is being run, decisions city councillors have made, what more they think city council can do. So I asked many people when I was preparing for this interview, give me some thoughts about what you would like to bring to city council. Or you could of course go to city council meetings and ask things. I don't know how many people go to those. I've been to a few. So what we're gonna do, here's the, well, it's a wine glass because they do Whining Wednesdays, which you'll see soon. So I'm gonna have you just pull one question out and I'll read it to you and we'll have a discussion. So this is from you guys. Okay.
Awesome.
This is fun. I'm enjoying this already.
This is kind of fun. Okay. There you go.
Okay. Let's see. Question number 1 comes from Jonathan. Homelessness is out of control in Vancouver. What steps need to be taken to address this?
Yeah, well, there's no question that homelessness is a huge issue in Vancouver. When I was first elected in 2008, in the 4 years before I was elected, it had risen 25% every single year preceding that for 4 years. So massive increase. As a city government, we were elected to work hard on it, and we've worked very hard on it and managed to get it down to almost flat, so we're seeing 0 to 5% increase a year, but it's still way too much. What we've learned over that time is that without the provincial and federal governments supporting it, nothing can get done. So the good news is we have a federal government that's finally committed to a national housing strategy, and Vancouver's taken a real leadership position in making that call. And now a new provincial government, relatively new, that not only has made that commitment, but has actually put dollars in this most recent budget. So as soon as the money came in, we signed a deal with them to do temporary modular housing, so we're building those around the city. You've probably heard about them. They've been a bit controversial in some parts of the city where people aren't as concerned about homelessness and getting people off the streets. But we've stuck to our guns and felt it's really important that if we have any chance of getting people inside, they have to have housing to go to. So the temporary modular, we've got 600 units of those coming online. And still important, though, that we have the permanent housing. So working with the provincial government, we've been able to announce several hundred new units already of permanent housing, but we need about 2,200 new units for people on welfare or pension or disability that they can afford at that level, and that's the work before us right now.
Okay. And with this funding that we get, can we get that many more?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big price tag, but I would say there's a much larger price tag to having people living on the streets. We also work on employment issues. The city's put a lot of resources that we have as a city into supporting organizations like Mission Possible that are a pathway off the street for people. Having a home is the first step, but making sure that people can stay in that home, both because they have the income, but also the self-confidence and the self-esteem, so that when there are challenges to their stability, they have some resilience to stand up for them. And community is hugely important too. So we did the first ever community plan for the downtown east side, which is incredible. I mean, it's a 130 some odd year old city. There's never been a plan for that community because people said, oh, it's impossible, this can't be done. But we said, no, we think it can. So in 2014, we passed that plan. We now have 2 levels of government willing to invest in that plan. The city will continue investing, and I think there's a possibility for people there that didn't exist before the plan came in and before the dollars started flowing.
Okay. Okay, Jonathan, I hope that answers your question that you wanted. Okay, let's pick another one. Why am I loving this? I just am.
One thing I might say while I'm choosing it,
sure.
If you go to vancouver.ca, and there's a little search bar and you type housing, it'll take you to a page where you can sign up for email updates. If there's consultations, for example, we brought in an empty homes tax. That raised $30 million. We've been going around the city asking people, what should we do with the $30 million? I may be inclined to sort of put it towards the ending homelessness issue. Other people, I'm a renter, there's a lot of people struggling with rent in the city, so there's many ideas about it, but the more people we have engaged, the faster we can get to solutions.
It's fantastic, engaging the public like we've tried to do. You've done it on bigger scale. I have a wine glass.
No, this is awesome. I love this.
Melissa, South Granville, in your opinion, what are the primary drivers of Vancouver's housing affordability issues?
Well, that's much longer probably than we have
You
today.
and Melissa need to go for coffee and talk for a few days maybe.
Yeah.
But what are some things that you could say about that?
I would say, and again, I'm a renter, so I kind of come from the perspective of a renter. I've been evicted 11 times in a row, not once because of anything I did, just because like someone could get more money for my house by evicting me out of it. So that's a problem, right? As long as you can keep evicting people and keep making more money, that's going to drive rents up and up and up. It becomes a market-based rent system rather than a people and community-based rent system. So we've worked with the provincial government, the new one, and they've just announced new rules that'll help protect people in rentals better. We also had a situation where at the federal level, the federal government used to give a tax credit so that if you had a piece of land and you could build condos or you could build rental, the money you can get from condos is much higher. The federal government had a tax credit that would help level that playing field. That disappeared in the mid-90s. And what you see is a graph of rental building that goes from about up here down to like nothing. I actually now, when I sit in council meetings, am often approving more rental in a single council meeting than was approved for an entire decade before that. So there was this huge problem that no supply was built. So you know, if there's no supply and there's more and more people coming to a beautiful city that's got a lot of opportunity for them, you're going to have a supply and demand problem. We have been able to build about 12,000 new rentals over the last decade, so 1,200 a year. We need to build about 3,000 more to make up for the gap that was created from that decade of not building rental housing.
Oh, thank you. And I know this is a very big issue that requires more than a few minutes to talk about, but thank you for addressing that.
Empty homes tax is another, I mean, it's another issue is that even if we build the housing, if there's not people living in it, that's problematic, right? That's going to drive up all the other rents. We've also brought in limits on Airbnb and other short-term rentals. So really, there's so many different things that have led to the problem. It really takes everyone working together to figure out how to do the solution. For the city, we've done the pieces we can, but still anxious to do more if there's areas that we could move into.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. Okay. Let's see what else is on the minds of Vancouver voters.
This is so great.
It's kind of cool, hey?
Yeah. Well, and I love to know people are thinking about it and like, what can the city do?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark would like to know about all the congestion, particularly downtown headed to Lions Gate. What have you done about this? What could be done? And then he said at the bottom, bike lanes over car lanes, yes or no?
Right.
Mark's got a lot on his mind.
Fair enough. I mean, so one of the things to think about is that the housing problem in Vancouver is really ultimately a land problem. We are the smallest city in Canada by far, geographically the smallest, and we are the most dense in terms of population density. So every square inch of land is argued over. So people want it for housing, they want it for soccer fields, they want it for community centers, libraries, schools, they want it to be able to move better. They need jobs, so we need commercial space, we need industrial space. So roads are going to be a problem because I can guarantee you if the answer is housing or roads, I am definitely going to choose housing. So we're not going to get any new road space. We've got the space we have. So the question then is, if we have more and more people coming and the same amount of road space, how do we use it most efficiently? The key ways of doing that are not cars, because if it's already congested, there's nowhere to put more cars. So transit is really critical. We know that if there was a Broadway subway, more people coming off the North Shore would take the C-Bus, take the Expo line or Canada line up to Broadway and then travel across using the subway. But because that's not practical, their only practical solution is to be in a car. So Broadway subway, we finally got the money from the federal and provincial governments for that, so that's going to make a difference. Bike lanes are fairly critical, not for Mark if he doesn't want a bike, but to get the person in the car in front of him out of the way if they do want a bike. So every new biker is taking a car off the road in front of you. So that, you know, it's figuring out how do we make sure that everybody who has different needs in their family has a different opportunity. We have found that the bikes in transit and pedestrian increases that we've seen, we now have over 50% of Vancouver residents walking biking or taking transit have led to a decrease in congestion in parts of the city, large parts of the city actually. But we still have the issue that people coming from outside Vancouver over the bridges or through the tunnels, they don't have transit options. So how do we make sure that everybody in the region is working together on it?
Well, and there are a lot of people who want to live in Vancouver, right? That are coming from other parts of the country, and that causes a lot of this. So thank you, Mark. I hope you're satisfied with that. If not, go to the next city council meeting and talk to Andrea about what you didn't get from her today that you hope to. And we have time for one more. We got quite a few really good questions left. Do you want me to pick my favorite, or do you want?
No, pick your favorite. That's great.
This is from Eduardo. Since the crisis has gotten so much worse in housing, under Vision Vancouver, what do you think the party should have done differently? Now, you did say some things that you did, and some things that you feel, but what are some things that maybe could have been done differently to address that wasn't done? From Eduardo.
Yeah, so Eduardo's got an excellent point. It's why 3 years ago now, actually, we did a housing plan back in 2011, and it was supposed to last us through to 2021. It clearly wasn't working, so we threw the whole thing in and said, okay, let's start from scratch again. And we brought together tens of thousands of people, a lot of experts around the table, a lot of lived experienced experts, renters, people living in social housing, people who were homeless, and said, what can we do differently? By that time, when we brought all of that together back in 2016, what we found was that the crisis was now global. There's no major city in the world that has any kind of functional economy that isn't dealing with exactly the same problems that Vancouver is. We have a situation now in the States where more than half of renters are paying half their income on rent. And we see over 500,000 people homeless in the United States. So this is a globalized problem now. It's in Vienna, it's in London. It didn't start in Vancouver. It's just we've all had the same basic issues, and we're now seeing what happens when people don't directly address those. So the 2016, we started the consultation. We just passed it last year, the new housing strategy. It really looks at the question of right supply. So there's this argument, if we just supply more and more and more, that will deal with the problem. And supply is definitely part of the challenge. If you don't build for 10 years, you need to figure out what to do. You either lock the gates to Vancouver or you build housing for the people that are coming here. So the new strategy really looks at different categories of are you a family, and what level is your income, and where is the strategy for your housing? Are you a single person who's come here for a tech job? Are you a construction worker? How do we have a strategy for each kind of general basket of Vancouver resident and make sure that there's a strategy for them moving forward? We did have a year actually back in 2011 where we got homelessness down to 154 people sleeping on the street. And then the problem, because if you fail up here, that person moves into a space here, which displaces the person that was living there, and eventually the person at the bottom ends up out on the street. So we've really retooled it all to say that all across the spectrum, like from the affordable ownership, high-end rental, mid-range rental, low-market rental, subsidized rental, supportive and social housing. We need to have strategies for all of those, not just target one piece of the housing spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Thank you very much for your answers to all these issues from Vancouver voters. Andrea Reimer again from Vancouver City Council. Yeah. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show, and just a few months left of your reign as City Councillor, and all the best for the rest of that. Thank you very much for being here. Yes, that's Andrea Reimer, and yes, this is Darren Storsley still of BareTalkTV. You can click on the link below if you'd like to say anything or read more, and I will see you next time.